shit. That's what I'm talking about.
Welcome to the FOMO Show about TV technologies and home theater news. This week's headlines are mostly about the future of OLED TVs. Beginning with, are OLED TVs already old hat? Is it just meh now? And if the market for OLED TVs is already saturated, why should LG Display or Samsung Display invest any further into improving OLED TVs? Instead, Samsung Display is pivoting and restructuring its business to focus on growth elsewhere. Oh no! But on the other hand, TCL disagrees with LG Display and Samsung Display because they will be investing in a third type of OLED technology, and they think it's even more superior than QD-OLED or WOLED. I think they may be onto something. We're going to talk about that and oh so much more on today's FOMO Show. And today's video is brought to you by Whokeys. Trying to build a PC on a budget but don't know where to buy your Windows 10 software on the cheap? Whokeys to the rescue. Use my code SF20 and immediate discount. At the bottom of this order where it says code CARD, to the right is the product key you need to activate Windows. So copy this long number, then go to the Windows menu and click on Settings. In the Settings menu at the bottom, select Update and Security. Select Activation, then select Change Product Key, paste what you copied from Whokeys, click Next, click Activate, and you're done. You can download a copy of Windows 11 Pro with my discount code SF20 and bam. My friends, I never thought I would say this, but are we at the end of the line with OLED TVs? And I mean specifically, is the public no longer interested in OLED TVs as a technology? This headline says it all. OLED TV is kind of meh. And why do we say that? Look at the sales numbers. OLED TV shipments dropped from 7.5 million units last year to 5.7 million units this year in 2023. That is a 24% drop. This is not just, oh, sales are stagnant, it's not growing in the market anymore, right? Shares of OLED TVs are staying the same, it's saturated. Last year it was saturated, this year it's shrinking. And so the question is, why? And I think I have an answer for that. But more importantly, what does this mean for the Samsung Display, LG Displays of the world, right? The OLED TV panel makers. But before we get there, we have to explore, why has the public stopped buying OLEDs? Why is the uptake slowed or shrinking? And I think this is the reason why. We start with what I always say, which is, what's the best value when I'm helping you guys choose a TV, right? It's always about that dollar per image quality. For a dollar, what kind of HDR impact are you getting? And I often recommend TCL or Hisense because for that dollar, you're getting so close to a flagship performance for a lot less. And OLED clearly is the best of the best. It consistently wins the shootouts, right? Last year, it was the Sony A95K. This year, it's the A95L. And in prior years, it was an LG OLED. But OLED was dominating and continues to dominate image quality. However, I think that value proposition for the consumer has hit a wall, meaning consumers know OLEDs are great, but they're no longer looking at the performance per dollar, which OLED delivers in droves. They're looking at immersion per dollar, the size of the TV. How big of a TV can I get per dollar? And this is where the OLED value proposition falls apart. This value proposition of dollar per immersion as being more important than dollar per HDR impact, image quality, right? Flies in the face of what many reviewers have been focusing on, including myself, which is, this is an amazing TV for tone mapping, HDR impact, creator's intent, on and on, motion. But maybe the reality is the consumer feels that it's good enough. You've hit the point where the image quality is already great at $1,000. Now I want size immersion. And unfortunately for the panel makers like LG Display and Samsung Display, if this is what the audience, the viewers want, and they're focused on making OLED TVs that isn't big enough, that isn't affordable at that size, you have a problem. You have a saturation problem. You've pretty much limited yourself, cornered yourself to selling only 55, 65-inch OLED TVs. But as the market gets to larger and larger TVs, that 77-inch, that 83-inch, that 97-inch OLED, prices don't match up. It doesn't scale linearly. Whereas LCD TVs, mini LED TVs, $3,000, $4,000, you're now getting a 100-inch TV. So I think this is something that the panel makers have to resolve. So with that in mind, Samsung Display has decided to restructure and organize. Samsung Display restructures organization to focus on foldables and micro display. So this goes to what we were talking about earlier, which is, have they stopped investing in QD-OLED to make it better? What are they doing specifically? So yes, they're looking at growth markets. We just established that OLED TV is no longer a growth market. It's saturated. The pie is fixed now. All you can do is take more of that pie from LG, but that's it. And you can't take all the pie from LG, right? LG's got its WOLED. You have your QD-OLED. At most, maybe you split the pie 50-50, but you see the pie is fixed. This year, that pie, 5.4 million units sold. And how certain am I that Samsung Display has lost interest in pushing QD-OLED TVs as far as getting its performance up there or its feature set up there? This article suggests that in a way that I think makes sense. HB Solution, setback in RGB inkjet equipment business, inevitable Cativa equipment return. So Samsung Display was working with HB Solution, ordering Cativa equipment for its inkjet printed QD-OLED system, right? The QD quantum dot, and they returned it. Actually, if you dive deeper, they no longer want to invest in this higher end equipment. And what is this higher end equipment doing? It's 8K QD-OLED. So they canceled the whole 8K QD-OLED thing, thinking, wait a minute, if people aren't buying our 4K QD-OLED anymore, or rather, if the market growth for 4K QD-OLED TVs isn't there, it's sure as heck not going to be there for 8K QD-OLED TVs, which would be way more expensive. So they canceled this, right? And this is where a lot of you are saying, oh, does this mean that Samsung Display has canceled any further development into QD-OLED? The answer is no. They're just canceled the 8K approach, which is the right decision. I completely agree with that. I think this is where LG Display screwed up. LG Display invested in their 8K OLED several years back. Well, how many have they sold? Obviously, not many. Over $15,000, over $20,000, depending on the size. 8K OLED has such a small market. It's so thin, it's not going to move the needle at all. There is no volume there. But it cost LG Display a whole lot of money to get the tooling, the manufacturing, just everything working to produce a few hundred of those 8K OLED TVs. That's what they invested several years ago, and now they're stuck because that investment, dead in the water. They're not going to get that ROI back on the 8K OLED technology that they spent so much time and money getting right. And even this year, they didn't release a brand new Z3 8K OLED. They just skipped it altogether. Well, they didn't release it in the USA at least, but there's not much to do other than add MLA on it. And how many people are going to get a brighter 8K OLED TV from LG, right? Not many. So instead, they did the M3 this year, which makes total sense. That's wireless, but it's 4K. Now, they should have done that 3 years ago, invested in that technology and released it early because it's flashy. It's something that people can relate to. 8K is not something that people really care about anymore. And this is where Samsung Display has said, wait, are we going to follow in the same footsteps as LG Display, focus on 8K OLED or 8K QD-OLED, but have no buyers? Instead, what are they focusing their resources on? Small QD-OLED panels, specifically monitors, right? So they're going to try to make these QD-OLED panels great for smaller sizes, 27-inch, 32-inch, 34-inch, whatever those sizes are. But the focus is on PC monitors because there's growth there. They haven't tapped or saturated or begin to penetrate that market yet. And this article, thank you, Brian, was Brian whispers, Brian whispered tech therapy, or is it Tech the Whisper Therapy? Our good friend Brian shared with me this article. The Steam survey suggests that players are leaving 1440p gaming monitors and going to 4K gaming. So it's either 1080p for high performance, great frame rates, or 4K for resolution and all that great stuff, right? But 4K is the future of gaming monitors, and that's where Samsung wants to be. So for 2024, both Samsung Display and LG Display will be focusing on moving more OLED monitors. 32-inch, 27-inch, 42-inch, whatever sizes they can get out there. That's the growth that's left for OLED TV technology or OLED panels technology, but OLED TVs definitely saturated. So do you agree? Have we reached market saturation for OLED TVs? Because LCD TVs, whether mini LED or not, it doesn't matter, is now good enough. You're now focused on getting it larger, not getting it better, not getting better specular highlights, not better blooming control, not better image processing, just larger. You guys are buying these TVs. You tell me. For $2,000 or $1,000, whatever your budget was, at what point did you stop looking at image quality and started looking at size? Because that's what I see as happening. And speaking of Samsung's LCD TV lineup, we have evidence that there will be a QN90D. The Samsung QN90D receives certification in Korea, but this is what's not interesting. Of course, we know there's going to be a QN90D, but will it be an ADS Pro panel from BOE, which I believe is an amazing technology that will displace VA panels? Or will they use a different ADS type technology from Taiwan because Samsung has a dispute with BOE? Or will they return to a VA panel next year? We're going to find out at CES 2024 and catch our live stream with Brian as we talk what to expect, the excitement from TCL and Hisense this year. Saturday, tomorrow. Check out our live stream. Sticking with the OLED theme, here's a TV brand I haven't heard about since CES 2023 last year, Displace. Now, if you remember, Displace was a new brand, a startup that offered the wireless suction cup TV, completely wireless. Imagine the LG M3, right? That Zero Connect TV. This TV is also Zero Connect, but unlike the LG M3, power wires not needed. It's battery operated, so it's truly wireless. There's no power wire, no power cable, and the HDMI, all your input output goes on a separate base that's Wi-Fi, similar to the M3. So this Displace TV, it's an OLED TV, and it's a suction cup TV, meaning if you have drywall, you don't want any mounting equipment, you press it against your drywall, there's a motor that creates a vacuum and it keeps the TV mounted to the wall. I'm just wondering, at some point, the battery runs out, how much time does it give you to rush and change the batteries before the TV falls off the wall? The risks are there. Now, not having owned this TV, I cannot say if it will fall off the wall or not, but it just feels kind of risky. But regardless, they're doing something different because they recognize that OLED TV image quality is good enough. Let's stop working on that image quality, right? So the OLED, the actual OLED technology, LG panel, not QD-OLED. It's their 60 Hz panel, which means it's probably similar to an A2, possibly like a B3. But 60 Hz makes me feel like it's more of an A2 in performance because many of you have the A2. It's good enough. And that's what Displace is saying. It's OLED, infinite contrast, which takes us to price. The 55-inch is the only size it comes in right now. And the question for you is, would you pay $4,500 for this TV? So it's $44.99 for one 55-inch, and I think the way it's set up, maybe you could attach them next to each other, so you can get four for $13,499. But let's start with one, right? One 55-inch is $4,500. The big feature, no wall mounting hardware. You stick it on the wall, active suction cup, stays there. What Displace is saying is, forget image quality per dollar. forget immersion per dollar. We're talking suction cup per dollar. And going against the current is TCL disagreeing with LG Display and Samsung Display because they believe there is more room for OLED TV growth. That is why they've continued to invest in inkjet printed OLED for TVs. Specifically, they're also disagreeing with me. It's not just inkjet printed OLED TVs. They showed off an 8K 65-inch inkjet printed OLED TV. Not 8K 100-inch, 8K 65-inch, right? Because, I guess, this is where the market is going. They wanted to show off what they can do. Now, inkjet printed OLED, this was the technology developed by Japan OLED, which went bankrupt recently, and TCL CSOT picked up all the equipment, brought it to China, and now they are taking over manufacturing of inkjet printed OLEDs. Now, I do have an inkjet printed OLED monitor in my other room. I love the monitor, it's great, but it has its limitations, right? Although its window brightnesses or the window size and brightnesses are better than traditional WOLED or QD-OLED. However, specular highlights are limited, does not get as bright. Now, with MLA, could it get brighter? Maybe, but right now, the big thing with inkjet printed OLEDs is that at 100%, at 50% windows, it can get brighter than WOLED. So it's great for professional work like I do, but as far as TVs, it remains to be seen, but CSOT, TCL thinks that there is a future here, and more importantly, and this is why I believe they might be right. So TCL thinks this is the best technology, right? And many of you saying, wait, how could it be the best technology? You just said that specular highlights will be weaker and so forth. You know why it's the best technology? Because it will be more affordable. It uses less chemicals, less waste. Inkjet printed is more efficient in terms of chemical usage, the ingredients, all the stuff, all the supplies, better than the ways it's being used or manufactured at Samsung Display or LG Display. CSOT thinks they can make inkjet printed OLED TVs for a lot less, and this is why they're doubling down. Not so much that maybe there's huge market growth potential, but rather if they can sell you an OLED TV, let's say an 83-inch OLED TV for $2,000, would people be interested? And now I'm starting to come around to maybe this is where the superiority needs to be. Not so much superior image quality per se, but excellent image quality, but at superior prices to continue the growth of OLED TVs in the market. But let me know what you think. Would you consider a less expensive OLED TV at an 83-inch size? And lastly, your smart TV knows what you're watching. One of our viewers shared this because he was very concerned. He goes, wait, I didn't know that all these smart TVs were tracking everything I watch. And that's true. Targeted ads, right? They are tracking everything you watch. As long as your TV is plugged into the internet, it knows everything about you. And this article pretty much tells you, hey, you could turn it off, right? You go to the privacy settings, and do you still trust that it's off? And this is my issue. As long as your TV is connected to the internet, they always have plausible deniability. We didn't know. You toggled it off. Turns out it was still collecting. Unintentional. We fired that engineer, right? We fired him. He no longer works here. Don't worry about it. It will never happen again. How often have we heard that? And so if you are concerned about privacy, do not stream content. As long as you're streaming, there's nothing you can do to quote unquote turn it off. It is always on. Now, there may be a switch or a toggle or something that gives you a sense that you've turned it off, but the reality is someone somewhere is collecting and you have no control over it until it's revealed, right? But until then, you're thinking, oh, no one knows what I'm watching. Not the case at all. So it's great that this article tells you how to turn it off if it gives you that sense of privacy, but the reality is I don't trust it, nor should you. But does this change your viewing habits? I mean, are you going to stop streaming? Of course not, right? We are assets. What we see is an asset to advertisers, to YouTube, to Netflix, to Prime. You think they're going to give it up just because you push a button that says, oh, don't show me information? Imagine if everyone pushed that button, turned off sharing, then they would just take away the button. And that's how it always is, right? So as great as this article is, I don't want to leave you with the impression that you could actually turn off the privacy. You think you did. I don't think you really did. But if you disagree, if you work for any of these TV companies and you believe that privacy can exist, let me know in the comments below. Until next time, stop the FOMO.